Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Relian. I began my career as a Rodbuster in a reinforcing specialty local back in 1988, and I'm currently the director of the Department of Reinforcing. And along with me today, I also have Danielle Kleinhans, who's the president and CEO of the CRSI, Concrete Reinforcing Steel Institute, and Steve Saraki, president of the National Association of Reinforcing Steel Contractors, and also the president of Black Swamp Steel. So our presentation today on tech comes to rebar. Typically, when we think of rebar, we don't think about technology or a high-tech industry, but we have seen some changes throughout the recent years that have made some differences in the way we do work and some of the work that's being done out there. So first of all, we look at concrete. Concrete, we used to talk about 3,000 and 4,000 PSI concrete. Now we have high strength concretes that go up to 19,000 pounds per square inch, and ultra high strength, close to 30,000 pounds per square inch. So some pretty big advancements there in concrete. We're also seeing some changes with concrete so that it performs better and has better workability. Which also helps with the use of concrete. We also see that reinforcing steel has changed over the years. Used to be 40 and 60 grade was all that was out there. Then grade 75 came along. Now we have 80, 100, and 120. So some very high strength rebar. We also see changes in some of the components, terminators that help reduce congestion with bends and hooks. Couplers, mechanical couplers, once again, also reducing congestion with lap splices and things like that. Just an overview of some of the tools and methods. 20 years ago, we were seeing the 25 years ago now, we've seen the tie gun come out. Good video there from Mac showing some of the evolution and some of the tools that they have available today. We also have a tie bot that's been around for a couple of years now that is basically a robot that ties bridge decks. Rebar software has become pretty common in the industry, used for estimating, detailing, inventorying, bidding, placing, productivity, job cost tracking, all of that kind of stuff. We're seeing a lot of off-site pre-assembly and fabrication. Different types of things in different areas, but that's becoming more and more common. So that's a method of the way rebars trucked to the site and either installed or assembled. And we also seen this Sky Mule, which is a drone, a tying drone that's been introduced, not in production, not being used, but it's something that we've came across out there. So systems, as far as construction, there's a lot of different stuff out there that we're seeing as well. We've seen an increased use of reinforced concrete and post-tensioning in the industry, which is good. But we are also seeing some competition from some different systems out there. Cross-laminated timber is becoming something that we're seeing occasionally out there. We're also seeing multi-story dimensional lumber frame buildings, which I've seen lots of these driving down the road, a 4 or 5 story building that typically would have been structural steel or cast in place concrete in the past. Seeing some of those that are just going up with regular traditional dimensionally framed lumber. Speed core, which is kind of a combination of structural steel and concrete, but with no reinforcing. So that's something that we've seen a few of those projects. And 3D printed structures or components or buildings. So we're seeing some different systems out there, something to keep an eye on. So that was just kind of an overview, and then I'm going to introduce Danielle now to talk about CRSI and some of the things that they are seeing. Danielle?
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Thank you very much, Mike. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to present to the group today. Although I'm disappointed not to be able to welcome you to my hometown of Chicago, I am happy to join you virtually today and talk through some of the things that we have going on at CRSI. Next slide, please. Can you kick to the next slide, Mike? Thank you. You can click through the next 6 bullets as well. So CRSI was founded in 1924. We're one of the oldest trade associations in North America. And we represent the full gambit of the reinforcing steel industry in North America. Our staff strives to be the technical experts and promoters of steel reinforced concrete by doing the things that you see on the screen here. First, understanding the marketplace and what's happening in the design and construction realm. Promoting the use of reinforcing steel, which I'll talk about a bit more with our team of region managers across the country. Our technical team, our engineering staff helps with many different trade associations and as well as our own to develop the rules for the use and ensuring the adoption of those rules for the use of steel reinforced concrete. We do have a research foundation, and so our institute works closely with our foundation to guide research that will affect change in the industry. And then certainly our members are key, always wanting to communicate the value of membership and grow membership, which is a little bit of what I'm going to talk about today as well, to try to welcome you or entice you to join our ranks. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we do in particular in terms of understanding the marketplace is to track rebar consumption domestically. The chart that you see on the screen here goes back to 2015. 2015 through 2019 as actual consumption numbers, and then the 2020 to 2022 are forecasted information. This slide was prepared late last year. We do have some late-breaking information. The 2020 actual consumption numbers are about 8.9 million tons, so an increase of about 2%, whereas the Portland Cement Association, which are the bars there in gray, and the Dodge company, who also does forecasts, had both predicted a decrease in rebar consumption in 2020. It's just a real testament to the industry. As we know, in early 2020, as the pandemic hit, there were some blips there, but by and large, construction remained an essential activity, and so we're quite thankful for that. Dodge and PCA have their predictions for 2021 and 2022 as well. With PCA being a bit more optimistic that 2021 and 2022 will see an uptick, Dodge a little bit more pessimistic for 2021. So we'll just have to see what the future holds there. Next slide, please. In terms of some of our priorities, we're really looking at 3 prongs, looking at promotion, our technical activities, and then our advocacy. Promotion, obviously, we're out there, boots on the ground each day, our region managers connecting with engineers, architects, contractors, really with the hope, frankly, of gaining market share for steel reinforced concrete as a construction material. Our technical team, again, developing and maintaining those industry standards and best practices. And then we do have lobbyists in DC working on some of our top priorities. Of course, infrastructure spending is the main one now. We've seen and heard a lot over these past years, but are hopeful that the dialogue that's happening now in DC will result in a long-term infrastructure funding plan to provide some stability really to that industry, to that funding source for the states to be able to plan and guide their activities. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention safety, of course, top priority for all of us within the industry. We have a strong, robust safety committee that really openly shares best practices and works on those standards. So that would be a great place for this group in particular of ironworkers to get involved and lend their voice. Next slide, please. Our region network, we split the country up into 5 regions. We have 6 region managers with 2 folks representing us in the West. And as I mentioned, these gentlemen are out there each day talking about the benefits of steel reinforced concrete. In a non-pandemic year, they also host region and chapter events, which we sincerely hope to get back to this year to engage our members across the country. Next slide, please. One of the recent advances that we've made in terms of technology, I guess, an example of it is our Rebar Reference mobile app. The first version of that was released a couple of years ago, and the base module or the free module includes information that is contained on our bar card. So the sizes and weights of the bars have some field inspection information in there, as well as a link to some of our resources online. as well as our Rebar U, which contains many of our webinars for review at any time. Recently, though, we have included 2 additional in-app purchases. The first is the bar identifier module. It basically contains the information in our manual standard practice that shows all of the bar markings for all of the mills. So if you have a bar that you need to identify where it's coming from, that bar identifier module would be of value to you. And then just last year, we released both an ACI version, or the American Concrete Institute, or AASHTO, which would be for bridges, development length calculators for purchase as well as an additional module. We really see this as an additional way to reach out to folks in the industry, in addition to our obviously print publications and PDFs. This is that information just right in your hand. Next slide, please. So some of the benefits of CRSI membership are certainly visibility, to have your local union represented in the conversations that are happening in the industry. Again, when we get back to in-person events, that opportunity is certainly for industry networking. As I mentioned, we represent all facets of the reinforcing steel industry. So everybody from manufacturers to fabricators to placers, bar supports, coders, everybody in the industry. And membership certainly really gives you a seat at the table. You're able with CRSI membership to join any of our committees and provide your comments and suggestions as to the best practices and the documents that will guide, obviously, the use of reinforcing steel in the future. And then certainly access to our technical staff, our region managers, and our engineering team, which would always be there as a resource for you. Next slide is the closing one, I think. Go ahead and just thank you for your time and attention. I have my contact information here, which we may share at the end of the presentation as well. But thank you for your time, your attention, and thanks for all you do out there, your hard work every day to keep our industry moving forward.
Thank you, Danielle. And those locals that do belong to CRSI, Danielle's correct, talking about the meetings, great networking opportunities, see what's going on in the industry, invaluable. So if your local does rebar and you're not a CRSI member, something to consider, pretty handy tool to have. And we're going to move on now, and I'll introduce Steve Zaracki, president of NARSC and Black Swamp Steel. Steve?
Good afternoon, or slightly just leaving good morning. And thank you, Mike, and thank you, Impact, and thank you to the audience for allowing me to speak today to everyone. As Mike said, I am wearing 2 hats today. I serve as the president of the National Association of Reinforcing Steel Contractors. I also serve as the president of a rebar placer contractor who happens to do a little bit of fabrication. So that's a little bit of background. Mike, or next. As the president of NARSC, we have many members who come from a diverse background in the industry. Excuse me. Our membership's obviously made up of contractors who are rebar placers. We have material and equipment suppliers. We have the industry advocates for the governments, and we have many local unions who are also members of our organization. Similar to CRSI, it's great networking opportunity and a way to get feedback from the various stakeholders within the industry. Here is predominantly what NARSC spends most of their days, months on, and years. NARSC has been around for 45 plus years. Again, started by a group of rebar placing contractors, and it has grown since then. Fred Cotting and his team, Fred is the executive director, and daily basis, he's keeping track of the changes in technologies and techniques, the industry news, and member projects. We get together and talk about specific projects that went well, and we even talk about the ones that maybe didn't go as well. We use a series of newsletters, seminars, networking opportunities, and reference manuals to convey information out to the membership. As an advocate for the industry, Fred and his team and myself work with staying current with the legislation, and when requested by maybe the international or Impact, Fred has been known to travel and have his input into various topics that are relevant and current of the time. We work in the industry with Impact in the international very closely. We have a great relationship with many of the local unions, and that has really opened up the communication between the contractors and the iron workers. And similar to Impact's role, has really provided great communication, not just getting together when it's time to negotiate the CBA, as I believe General President Dean referenced in his presentation. So next, Mike. Another one of NARS's core values is safety. Similar to everyone on this presentation and who's listening today. We work closely with the industry leaders. Specifically, one of the hot topics that's been ongoing, NARS, Fred Cotting and his team have been working with Steve Rank on the reinforcing and post-tensioning standard. This has many chapters to it. We will not be able to go through them all today. The next slide, I'll talk about a few specifics, but I believe for the last 10 years, NARS, industry advocates, Steve Rank have been working on this topic. I summarize it very quickly when I'm talking to somebody is we're looking from the reinforcing and post-tensioning perspective to have the same rules, regulations, and safety standards as that are contained in subpart R of the OSHA manual. We've worked with Mike Rillian and the International and Impact on several issues just this year. Black Swamp had Mike and Steve Rank come into a conference call with one of our large GCs in an effort to work through how we were going to move the bar from one place to another, what was the tie-off requirements, how were we going to perform it safely, and what was acceptable and not acceptable in the industry. And we were successful as a group and with the GC in finding a solution to that. So also I wanted to throw out there that the Ironworkers Rigor and certification that Impact and the Ironworkers have been working on, we support that 100%. Next slide. Here's a little bit of some of the specific reinforcing issues that are in the post-tensioning and reinforcing standard. I'm going to touch on a couple of them and not all of them that we believe. I've used this line before. Black Swamp Steel also happens to do structural work. And this is the line I've used on occasion. Many have heard this. When our rebar guys get there to do the foundation and some of the preliminary work, the floors, the slabs, what have you, it's like the Wild West. We have no protections from subpart R. We have no reference manuals to try and have the GC provide us with a safe work environment. I believe it was Steve Rank several years ago. He used the cliche, or maybe not a cliche, but he said to me, he goes, two Steves. He goes, Steve, all I've asked them to do is take the word structural steel out of subpart R and put in reinforcing steel. He doesn't understand why it's such a challenge. And he continues to work on that today in conjunction with NARS. Couple of the top hot topics, obviously fall protection. The impalement protection responsibility, that's a very important one to the industry. Who supplies them, who places them, and then who maintains them. The maintaining portion has become very, very important. The second one, federal OSHA versus state OSHA. This is where the international NARS industry advocates approached the federal OSHA many years ago to try and get the reinforcing, post-tensioning and reinforcing standard incorporated into their documents. Many reasons they have not been successful. So a group of people, including General President Dean, Steve Rank, NARS, has attacked this from the state level and trying to get the language incorporated into the state OSHA plans. And they've been successful in California, I believe, Washington. They're currently working Michigan and Nevada, and there might be another state or two out there that Mike Rillian might be able to add at the end of this presentation. So the last one on this slide I want to talk about is the control and contractor issues. Who's going to be responsible for providing a safe work site? And we're from the Midwest here, and today it's -8 degrees before wind chill. We had who is maintaining that site, let alone just providing access to the work face, who's responsible for frozen ruts to be back dragged so our iron workers aren't twisting a knee, twisting an ankle. And these are the type of who's going to provide stone for a lay down area. These are the types of topics that we want to control. Next slide, please. Okay, so getting to the real topic of the day, Mike asked me to talk about what are some of the current and future technologies in rebar, reinforcing steel placement. And I broke it down into 3 categories for my own mind, simplistically. There's material selection, there's the rebar placement, and there's tying and connecting. These 3 topics are something that as a contractor, we keep an eye on, and at NARS, we are constantly tracking to see what's up and coming and what's working for the technologies today. Next slide. Under material selection, the ultimate alternative reinforcing for concrete structures, you can go to the next slide, Mike. We're all familiar with the composites and the various technologies out there. We have seen, as a contractor here in the Midwest, the old is new again, reemergence, for lack of a better word, of the GFRP, or glass fiber reinforcing polymer. Black Swamp Steel currently had 4 projects in the last 2 years on bridge decks where we installed the glass fiber reinforcing polymer, and we just call it the glass fiber. It comes with its own tricks of the trade. Here's some recommendations. We work closely with Owens Corning. They have entered the game 2 years ago as a manufacturer of glass fiber reinforcing polymer. They've thrown their marketing engine behind them, and we're starting to see this more and more, at least in the Midwest. Next picture. Here's some of the constructability advantages that are being portrayed to the various contractors, to the Department of Transportation for the various states, and why their product should be used in lieu of the reinforcing steel. Transportation, they can fit more on the truck by weight. Handling, half the number of trips. They believe the iron worker can carry more bars of GFRP at a time. The faster placement due to lightweight and the reduced risk of lifting and the safety component of that, reducing the overall system cost. Next slide, please. Mike alluded to this a little bit, mass timber. This is a slide that I've had before, is from what the heck is that to wow. It is really becoming popular. It has grown. It's currently been for the past 3 years in the Northwest area of the United States. We're seeing it in the Midwest now, ENR. There's been several really good articles about 2 to 3 buildings, mass timber buildings that are being built in Milwaukee. The last article in December from ENR talks about how they're getting past the combustible issues, how they're getting past the height issues, and those types of things. So this is what I would call a substitute alternative product. And NARS is doing what they can to monitor this. They're an advocate. They call this, and this is something that I've had a discussion, that this mass timber is a green building material. Okay, I'll give you that. But also is reinforced concrete, in my opinion. Crushed concrete after it's served its purpose is a very popular product used in civil construction. So it's being recycled. Also, the rebar that is taken out of that crushed concrete is being recycled also. So when you look at the salvage value of reinforced concrete, I think it would be something that could compete with what we're calling green building materials. So I'll stop there on the mass timber. Next slide.
Hey, Steve, I'd just like to quickly mention that Danielle pointed me to some pretty good resource materials on, why mass timber is not as attractive as it is. They're building it up to be so much better, but the green and the other things that you had mentioned. So if anybody needs those, just reach out to me and I can provide you that information.
Thank you, Mike. And you're exactly right. Each one of these topics I've touched on a little bit. You could probably have your own presentation, but I'll try and keep it brief. Rebar placement, manual versus robotic. Mike mentioned in his introduction, you know, a company by the name Advanced Construction Robotics that has it's going to be seen later in my presentation. It has a robot out there that performs the tying. We work closely. NARS has a relationship with the Advanced Construction Robotics, which is ACR. They currently have a prototype out there that will lift the rebar, carry the rebar, and place the rebar. And this is predominantly on flat work, bridge decks, what have you. I had a few slides put together. Carson over at ACR asked me to just keep it a little bit quiet for now. He provided me this slide and he said, IronBot is coming. He'll be more than happy to share with me and NARS some information as we go forward. And I'll pass that along and hopefully be able to present to you again and give you an update on the actual placement by robots. There is one other company out of Brooklyn. It goes by the name of Toggle. They have a robotic arm. It reminds me of a automobile plant where they have a robotic arm on a pedestal. It has an elbow and a knuckle on the end, and it places one bar at a time. You can go out there on the internet. I do not have a relationship with them. I was unable to get their permission to include any slides or links, but they are out there under YouTube. It's called Toggle. And they have a demonstration of it building a column. So thank you. Next slide.
And quickly, these are just things out there in the industry that we need to keep an eye on. You know, make sure that we know what's out there, what our competition is, what we can utilize, what we can do to be competitive in the industry.
And I'm just going to add to that, Mike. That's a great point. I know the International and NARS has working with. We're going to get to TieBot for the tying here coming right up. And we want to embrace this technology. We want to keep any of these robotic items for tying or placing within the jurisdiction of the ironworker. IronBot is not going to unload the truck. It's not going to lay out the steel. It's not going to stage the material for the installation robotically. There still will be a role for the ironworker. This ties into, is there really going to be a continued labor shortage of skilled rodmen? But if so, then we might be able to have these two working in conjunction, not as a replacement. So tying and connecting is the next topic. And again, it's kind of manual versus robotic. We have the manual, the tie guns. That is something, these are by Max USA. These are the latest and greatest versions. That's referred to generically, not generically, but referred to as the twin tires. The twin tire is used in two models here that are handheld. They are quicker. They do provide a cost savings in the tie wire. They use less tie wire per tie. They do have shorter heights, which requires less concrete needed to fully cover a wire tie, and the health benefits of being able to tie with the pull of the trigger. Next. This is just another slide real quick. The difference between the two types of guns here, the tie guns, is the 441 will do a 3x3 up to a 7x7, and the 611T will do a 5x5 up to 9x10. They perform the same task. They have the same number of ties approximately, but one will do the smaller bar, one will do the larger. Thank you. And here, as Mike mentioned, is the stand-up tie gun. Reduces back strains, adjustable handles, triggerless, shorter tie heights, tilt sensor, and closed design. This has a twin tire basically on the end of a handle. So the next slide, Mike, you'll be able to see that the iron worker, excuse me, back up one. I might have missed the slide there, where this one will show the iron worker walks across the bridge deck, a flat surface predominantly, and he does not have to bend over, and they're promoting the safety component of this. This will tie a 3x3 up to a 6x6 bar, similar ties per charge, and industrial foundations, commercial floors, water tanks, they've used this in. So This is out there on the market right now, Max USA. If anybody is interested to try one, they're more than happy to come do a demonstration. I also wanted to throw that out there that Max USA offers to all the locals that they will personally send one of their technicians for a demonstration for any one of their products to your apprenticeship, to a job site, what have you, in an effort to show you the technology that they're promoting today. At Black Swan.
Here that after this session, they're going to take a half an hour break before ours. So once they get done.
At Black Swamp Steel is that this replaced an iron worker. Instead of being able to do one bridge in 1 week, we've been able to do 2 bridges in that week. So we have found that this has actually increased our backlog. Thank you. Here's the TieBot. TieBot's been around since approximately 2018. This is also by ACR Robotics. This one has several projects under their belt. If you can see the slide on the upper left, it is basically a gantry that runs on the skids for the concrete screed. It will go back and forth. It has one tying head that uses sensors to locate itself and position itself and to make the tie. And if you want to go to the next slide, Mike. These are provided also by ACR. There's been 25 total projects, predominantly in the Northeast and down in Florida. The blues are 2018, I believe, and the yellow, can't see the slider, through 2020. But they've got quite a few projects under their belt. And you can see a better picture there on how it straddles the bridge and moves back and forth. Next slide. The attractiveness or what they're promoting with this particular TieBot robotic tying machine is it runs day or night. It requires only one technician. It can work multiple shifts in a row. It will also span between 10 feet and 145-foot bridge. Rides along the existing screed rails that are already there for the concrete. And the mobilization in and out is inexpensive and quite quick. Next slide, please. In closing, that's Fred Conning, Executive Director of NARS. My name is Steve Saraki, President of NARS. Mike can get you this contact information for any follow-up. We've really just touched on many of the topics briefly, and we can provide you anything more. Next.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. If anybody has any questions, I guess you could type them in, and Kevin Byrne will assist us, I guess. If,
we do have a couple of, Mike, we do have a couple of questions in relation to the TieBot. How many man hours do you project the ironworker losing from this? And will this be another job that the operating engineers will try to grab to set up? I know that we had this product out, this company came out to our, the pit out there in Ann Arbor. And we had like a guarantee that the ironworkers would be involved with setting this up. So, and then I would imagine it only does a snap tie?
Yeah, it basically utilizes a tie gun, which does a snap tie. So, you know, I mean, we all thought the same thing when we seen this thing for the first time was that, you know, hey, we don't want to lose our jobs, and we don't want to lose man hours. Regardless of that, we can not want that all we want, but at the end of the day, somebody's going to use this thing, whether it's the laborers, the operating engineers, or the non-union. So we need to figure out where our place is with this, and you know, do the best we can to keep the man hours and do whatever we can to make sure we don't lose the work. So as far as initially when it came out, the TieBot, they sent something to the Department of Labor. I don't remember the exact communication, but the language came back from the Department of Labor, something about an operator, machine operator or something. And so working with Chris Berger and our Davis-Bacon department, we quickly responded and got a letter to the Department of Labor stating that, hey, this isn't an operator. This is basically an extension of a tool the ironworkers currently use. And so they got that word operator out of the description And so basically, it was a win for the iron workers, so that when this comes out to the job site, it's going to be the iron workers setting it up, and then they have I believe it's called a quality control person or something like that, Steve, if I'm not mistaken, that
Yeah,
runs the machine, and that's going to be an iron worker. So as far as man hours lost, that's going to remain to be seen. This thing is kind of still in the trials at this point. We're seeing it, I think somewhere in one of the slides, there was been used on 26 bridge decks. It's not like it's being used on every bridge deck out there. But it's like the tie gun. I talked to some locals who don't even know what a tie gun is. They haven't seen it, or nobody uses it in their jurisdiction. I'll guarantee you that some of the other people are realizing the productivity and safety issues with some of these tools, and they're going to be using them. And if we don't figure out a way to be competitive and use these things in the realm of how they're going to benefit us, then we're going to end up losing in the long run. So yeah, we don't like to see job loss. We don't like to see man hours lost. I don't know where this TieBot thing's going. I don't think any of us do, because it's basically in the trial period right now.
Mike, and I just wanted to add to that. You are correct. There is one technician who runs that and who has to replace the tie wire on the machine as it goes through its shift. But equally important, the international, as I believe you said, and the ironworker locals want to keep this very close to their chest. Using this does not eliminate the ironworker completely. They're still required to do the unloading, the shakeout, and the placing, and 10% tie before you can launch this thing. Now, where this has its wrinkles is if you're doing a bottom mat and a top mat, TieBot doesn't like to work both areas at the same time. So you're ending up with some confusion there. Also, it's one gun at a time. And RGC, speaking from Black Swamp's perspective, they don't give you 10 days to do, a bridge deck. They want you to bring in 10 guys and be done in 2 days. That's another angle. Now, ACR recognizes those different types. So it's not going to be a 100% replacement, in my opinion, ever. There might be a particular project that's conducive, and that could be because of scheduling or the number of top 50%, 100%, and or the layout, when's top mat, bottom mat. So there's still some logistics that have to be worked out.
Yeah, as of right now, it doesn't look to be very productive, but I mean, we all know how things progress. Technology progresses, things change, they get better. So we don't know where this is going.
Kind of the old saying, there's no stopping technology. Just like in the old days when we went from stick to wire feed, guys bitched about, hey, what are you doing with the wire feed? You're not going to stop technology. So like Mike said, if we don't put those tools in our hand, they're tools of the trade. If the ironworker doesn't have it in their hands, somebody else will. So mark my words, Mike and NARS will stay on top of this issue and make sure that the ironworker has a seat at that table. And if the tie gun or TieBot comes around, it's our expectation that the ironworker will be setting it up and operating it, monitoring it, and obviously pre-tying. So I just want to give a shout out to NARS, all they do, and our good friend Fred Cotting, and good to see you on Zoom, Steve. And Danielle, thank you very much. I was very interested in your app, and we'll probably have further conversations about your app in Ann Arbor. And also, not looking to spend Impact's money, but I think that membership in the CRSI qualifies for an impact grant. It benefits both labor and management. So for those locals out there that aren't part of that, look to your district council, see how to get a membership in that. Anybody that does any kind of reinforcing work in their local, you should be a member of that too. So Mike, you want to wrap up? I don't see any other questions. Great presentation. Thank you to everyone that put this together. And thank you, Danielle and Steve, for all your hard work on behalf of the ironworkers. Mike, wrap it up.
Thank you.
Yeah, just thanks to everybody, two presenters, Steve and Danielle. Appreciate the, you guys getting on and spending time doing this. It's a great help to the locals and the ironworker membership as a whole. And thanks to everybody for logging on to the conference today. And next time, let's do this in person.